Hello and a very warm welcome to the late-breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage, and me, Ben Hocking. Apparently, all of the news has happened, so we go away for a couple of days, Sam, and you go away for a couple of days, and Adrian, Newey, and Nico Hulkenberg, everything's happening.
I've tried to have a little holiday, tried to have a little break. And so if you're hearing any noises in the background, I do apologize. I'm in a hotel room. And apparently they've gone release all the news while Sam isn't here. So I'm overlooking a mini golf course. I've got my feet up. You can hear the clattering behind me. I'm ever so sorry for you audiophiles. I've got a cup of tea and a Starbucks mug, or cup actually. And I'm trying really hard to indulge myself in some Formula One news. Harry, you're actually here at home doing the business.
Thank you. I mean, I'm 3 in a row now, right? We're flying along.
Yeah, don't get too cocky, kid. It's not going to be 4, is it?
Should we set up a British Airways like Avios style reward points for you when you turn up?
Yeah, that's fair. Oh, yeah, right. Ben, you're right. I'm not here on Wednesday.
I'm here on holiday and you're not even here on Wednesday.
It's a valid point. Well, it was fun while it lasted, folks. It's a pleasure to have me.
Are you off to race AI cars in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, sorry. We were talking about this off air. If anyone has seen this, please let us know. But the AI cars in Abu Dhabi are perhaps the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
Don't worry. We're not going to lose to the machines just yet. They'll get us eventually, but not just yet.
Danny Kvyat still beat them, so it's fine. All is well.
Guy can do everything.
I'm glad that that's where we started with all of the news. We started with AI cars and Danny Kvyat. That feels very late breaking. But of course, we do have all of the news. F1 back and forth is coming up later on. Stefano Domenicali, some comments on sprint races. So I'm sure that will be good to chat through. Nico Hulkenberg signing for Sauber next year on a multi-year deal. But we'll start with Adrian Newey and multiple reports that he will be leaving Red Bull after nearly 20 years with the team. No indication yet on what his next move might be. Some teams being floated around are Ferrari, Aston Martin and Mercedes, but at this point, no idea as to where he would go, if anywhere. Who knows? Maybe he fancies putting his feet up at this point in his career. But Sam, your thoughts on the news breaking and his departure from Red Bull?
I am really shocked that the news came out while I was on holiday. I'm joking. I'll stop putting holiday into everything I talk about.
You're on holiday, mate.
Look, my feet are literally up. Rosie's just taking a photo of me. I'll send it to you guys later. I am actually kind of shocked. We've heard about this. I keep calling it Civil War, Red Bull Civil War. And I guess this is kind of the culmination of all the disaster that's been going on internally in that team. I think you'd be quite naive not to assume that some of the drama that has surrounded Red Bull with the Christian Horner controversy, what's been going on with Helmut Marko and Max Verstappen, Ford have probably got a very delicate eye placed upon the situation that the greatest designer in Formula One history is possibly leaving the team right before their tenure in the sport begins. It's not good times for Red Bull right now. And if you want to talk about a mechanism to level the playing field, losing Adrian Newey, the man who sees, like Neo does in The Matrix, but air particles, that is a real loss for any Formula One team. I was absolutely shocked, though, that it came so early. I kind of thought we might get like a summer transfer kind of announcement or an end of the season. I'm going to step away for a bit. But to have it only 4 races into the season really tells you that there must be some internal troubles, some turmoil going on, that he's gone, I can't wait for a natural break in either the season or my contract to make this announcement. It feels like a get me out sooner rather than later kind of situation.
What was your immediate response to the news, Harry?
Banter. A lot of banter.
Love that.
I really enjoy the fact that nothing's really been confirmed, but clearly something's happened in terms of Adrian Newey has communicated this to Red Bull and then refused to elaborate. Just not said anything else. Just like drop the bombshell. I'm not saying where I'm going though. Just let everyone else go absolutely mental about it. So, if it happens and Red Bull have to let him go, that's a shocker, because I think we said this before in terms of like a order of who you let go from Red Bull. Christian Horner's Christian Horner's the bottom. Then it would be Max Verstappen. Then I say Adrian Newey. He's the one. He's the person that everyone wants in their team. So yeah, it's a shocker. It's very intriguing to think or speculate, I guess, as to where he's going to go next. Because as you say, it's entirely up to him. He could go off to a Ferrari, could go off to an Aston Martin, a Mercedes, and he's well within his own rights to do this. He could just retire and put his feet up because man's done well.
He's what, 65 now, right?
Yeah, he could just, and he's got a garden.
He's got a retirement age yet. Thank you. Come on, pay into the national insurance, earn your pension.
Right. I would suggest Adrian. Oh God, I would suggest Adrian Newey, Rishi Sage over here. I would suggest Adrian Newey doesn't need his pension. He's probably earned enough. Do we reckon?
I think he's done all right for himself.
Yeah, he might have made a couple of quid. Oh, good pension chat with the late breaking boys. But yeah, I mean, because given, I think what we know that his current contract with Red Bull runs out at the end of 25, do we think? And then there'll be a period of gardening leave. So even if he wanted to join a team, it could be like 2027 before he does. And then he will have no impact on that 27 car. It'll be a 28 car at earliest. I mean, 2028, that's a long time away. I know we're in 20...
Can we sort this? I mean...
It's a long time.
I know gardening leave is somewhat needed, but this is a bit ridiculous, right?
Yeah, I know. Man will be almost 70 by the time he can do something again, if that is the case. So... I'm assuming they'll be able to negotiate him out of it. But yeah, maybe that's what he's thinking. Maybe he's like, well, it's going to be so long. Maybe I'll just retire. Don't know. We'll see.
We will. I mean, my immediate response was one of shock and surprise. And this isn't out of the blue news. Like, we did discuss this not too long ago, that there were reports that Aston Martin had made an offer for him. So it's not like this has come out of completely nowhere. But even so, an instrumental figure in a team like Red Bull for nearly 20 years deciding to leave, it is massive news. Honestly, this whole Red Bull situation, it needs proper investigating how a team can be doing so well on track and be in such disarray and meltdown behind the scenes. It beggars belief because, you know, we've had big names leave teams before. Like, you know, we've had Lewis Hamilton very recently leave Mercedes. We've had Schumacher leave Ferrari. But in all of these instances, it's come after the dominant period has ended. Like, Lewis Hamilton has decided to leave Mercedes, yes. But by the time he's left, he will have done 3 seasons, essentially, where Mercedes have not been in those championship winning years. And similarly with, I guess you could say, with him leaving McLaren as well, Lewis Hamilton. Like, he left that team after they hadn't really competed for a championship for a number of years. Michael Schumacher left Ferrari and went into retirement, but only after 2 years of not winning a title. And yet here we are with Red Bull, and they are in the midst of arguably the most dominant run in the history of this sport. I don't want to say 2024 is done before it's actually done. I mean, let's see, wait until it plays out. But there is a reasonable chance by the end of 2024 that Red Bull will have had like the most dominant 3-year stretch in F1 history. Like, it's very difficult if 2024 continues as it started to say there has been 2022 to 2024, a 3-year period. Has there ever been such dominance in the sport? Possibly not. Like, and yet they are in utter disarray behind the scenes. It is honestly baffling how this domino effect has happened, all starting with Christian Horner and the case that was dismissed against him. And we almost saw it happen with Helmut Marko leaving the team or being suspended. We almost saw it with Max Verstappen leaving the team, and who knows, that's not resolved yet as far as we're aware. It's just honestly how it's got to this point is a bit crazy. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what his next move is. Sam, do you have an instinct on what that might be?
It's really hard to tell. I think the historic significance of Adrian Newey cannot be understated enough. And what Red Bull are potentially losing here could shake the very foundations on which that team are built on. When you look at the fact that, you know, he was chief designer at Williams from 91 to 96, and because of that, they essentially won, 5 constructors winning championships in a row. He then goes to McLaren. They win in 98, of course. And I'd argue that the car that Alonso and Hamilton was driving after he left was still built upon his principles. And then he goes to Red Bull, of course, and designs the 10, 11, 12, 13 winning cars, and then designs the 2022, 2023, and the current cars as well. The guy, everything he touches essentially turns into racing gold. So wherever he goes next, it's almost like the golden egg, the golden goose that, you know, you lay the perfect egg and you're going to end up hatching a world championship. It really does feel like it could be that significant. What's crazy about this is no matter who you are in motorsport, surely you stick an offer in. Surely you put a cheeky little offer on the table and say, hello, Adrian. Yeah, I know that we're Haas and we haven't even got, podiums, God knows when, but do you fancy coming to design for us? Andretti, would you not go, hello, we're looking at challenging. You strengthen our bid. Audi, I know we're about to enter, but do you fancy popping on by? Fancy setting something up? And those are just teams that, are not even challenging at the front. But if you're a McLaren, who he's already got previous with, if you're a Mercedes, if you're Ferrari, would you not sit there and go, this man could turn our fortunes around. This guy could be the key that unlocks fortune for the next 5 or 6 seasons. And I imagine with the gardening leave stuff, there must be a way to buy out the clause. It will cost a lot of money, of course, but you hear it in other sports all the time. A football reference from the UK is that Dan Ashworth, the sporting director of Newcastle United, he wants to leave for Manchester United. He's on gardening leave at the moment, and the Manchester United board are debating with Newcastle on what the cost would be to essentially end gardening leave and bring him back to work. Contracts are contracts. They're all bits of paper. They can be put to null and void if an agreement is put in place. So if someone like Ferrari are willing to go, well, HP have turned up and they're paying all of our blooming cost cap money, we'll put that money into buying Adrian Newey's gardening leave out. Why wouldn't you do it? If it sets you up for the next few years, why would you not make that investment? So where he goes is still a bit of an unknown, but his options are absolutely endless. I'd argue he has got more opportunity than any other driver almost ever in Formula One.
What do you think, Harry? Any likely destinations?
It's Ferrari, surely. I
Pretty confident?
I'm not pretty confident because I agree with Sam entirely. Every team out there, doesn't matter if you've got no money at all, like a Haas. That wouldn't happen though because Gene Haas, he'll be a new person.
I doesn't trust him.
Sorry, I meant to go swing a tea at the wrong time then.
Oh, that got me. Oh boy.
They've gone to Gene. Gene, there's a perfect opportunity here. But could get the most successful F1 designer in the world. And Gene goes, no.
Adrian who?
Adrian who? He'll be new.
I've not heard of that guy.
Yeah, but so you're right. I think every team, and Audi was another one that popped into my head, and Aston Martin too. They must be, his phone must be ringing a lot at the moment. But I just feel like Ferrari is his natural destination. Just he'll have ticked off. I know they're not all the big three anymore, but the big three in terms of McLaren, Williams, Ferrari. It just seems to make sense to me. But we didn't expect this to happen anyway, so he could go literally anywhere. And I think he just want another project. So all of them would be. Ferrari would be, Aston Martin, Audi, doesn't matter. But I just get the feeling he would. If he does, then Freddie Vass is a god. Signs Lewis Hamilton and Adrian Newey. Goodness me. Could you
Still be third?
still be third?
They'll find a way. I don't know how, but they'll find a way.
Engines is full of pasta. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I guess it's what he wants to do, and what a privileged position he's in to be so wanted. But it's entirely up to him. So yeah, it's tricky to see, but I do think Ferrari would be the most obvious option here. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think ultimately his destination will be a team that I think it will be a factory team. I'm not sure who it will be, but I don't see him going to a place where they are a customer team. So, for example, McLaren, I don't think is going to happen because at this stage in his career, I don't think he wants the restriction. And to be clear, I guess with Aston Martin as well, they're technically not a factory team, but obviously they're getting Honda engines and they're only getting Honda engines. So I think it will either be a factory team or someone that has just got exclusive use of an engine. I think Ferrari is very likely, and at this point I would probably say is the most likely. I think it'll be a 2-horse race. I think it will be Ferrari or Aston Martin. We know that Aston Martin have expressed interest in him in the past, and I have little doubt that Lawrence Stroll would open up his checkbook to make this happen. Like you say, a team will probably have to pay a good amount of money to get him out of that gardening leave, or at least some of that gardening leave. But it's Adrian Newey, and it's almost definitely going to be worth it for whoever that team is. I think Aston Martin would be prepared to pay the price, and I think Ferrari would as well. So I think those two are potentially the most likely. But it's difficult. It is difficult to put into terms how important this is. Like, people will. Adrian Newey is spoken about a lot, but I think, Sam, you said words to this effect in the past, and I 100% agree with it, which is Adrian Newey leaving Red Bull is more impactful than Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes. As mad as that sounds, at least in terms of success, Lewis Hamilton, in terms of publicity, that move will definitely outrank whatever Adrian Newey does. But in terms of actual impact on winning, I don't think there's one person on the grid that could move from one team to another team that would have as much of an impact. It's right up there.
I think the crazy thing about Formula One, of course, is you could be the greatest driver to ever grace a racetrack. But if you haven't got the machinery under you to complement your abilities, then you're never going to be better than a midfield runner. Lewis Hamilton could be, statistically, same with Max Verstappen, statistically the greatest driver of all time. But if they spent their entire career racing around in the Alpine at the moment, we'd never know it. We'd go, they're very good. But we don't know what they could achieve. So having someone like Adrian Newey on the cards who can create it's like, I imagine it's up when Jordan built his Nikes. That's how big that this was. This is, he has the ability to transform, to revolutionize someone's career if they get it in the right time frame. If Leclerc's still at Ferrari and Newey goes to Ferrari, and in 5 years' time, Leclerc could be a 5-time world champion. That is a plausible period of history, or the future, rather, that we could be seeing. What's confusing me, though, in all this chat that we've all had, and I've said it time and time again, why aren't Mercedes putting themselves in the ring? Why are they not making moves to transform their internal organization to make sure that this fits? They're moaning or whinging, and they don't know what's going on with the car, and they don't understand it. They've got all the money on the earth. Why aren't you moving mountains to make this happen when you know it's probably a 99% guarantee that you'll find success with this man in your team? I don't understand why they're not moving forward to try and see. They've lost Hamilton. Agreed that it's not as important as a designer, the ultimate designer. So why not bring in the ultimate designer? It just it doesn't make sense to me.
This is where they sign him.
Yeah.
Well, fair play. Fair play if they do. Well done. That's what they should be doing.
But I guess they must be. Like, Toto Wolff's not an idiot. I'm sure he's having those conversations, but I guess, like I said, it's up to Adrian Newey rather than anyone else. You can move as many mountains as you want. Toto Wolff is a big mountain mover, I've heard.
I actually heard he's a pumpernickel lover.
Okay, move on.
Harry, do you think that there's almost, as well as Adrian Newey leaving, is perhaps just as much of a danger for Red Bull, the knock-on effect of other smart people within that organization looking at what Adrian Newey's deciding and saying, well, maybe we should follow him, maybe we should also consider other opportunities?
I think there is that risk, and you also risk you losing your star driver. And I still rank Adrian Newey above Verstappen in terms of importance here. But if Newey leaves and Verstappen's like, well, this might be as good as it gets here, then he may go somewhere else. And yeah, you're right, with other people that work within the design team and things like that, this might be writing on the wall moment for them. So I know previously Christian Horner said, unless I made this up, but he said they would survive without him, or was to that effect, I think. So, which they've built up a bigger structure now than they ever used to have, or when they first started and when they first got Adrian Newey. But there's a reason Christian Horner went for Adrian Newey and persistently went after him, and in the early noughties at the end of 2004, was because he's so sought after. So. There is a risk, I think, that people may just think, well, this is the end of the glory period and we're going to go off elsewhere now. So it could have quite a big knock-on effect. I think we're saying that you can survive without him and just use what's been learnt. Yes, I think that could, in the short term, yes, but as a long-term solution, I don't think that's going to work because you do risk other people going.
And I might be really wrong, usually am, but... Am I right in thinking that Newey is actually contracted as part of his own design house, right? He's not technically a full-time employee of Red Bull, but his design house is part of their makeup. And technically, I don't know if he comes under the cost cap because of this, but you're not just losing Newey if that's the case. I imagine he has a very trusted team of designers around him that make up his excellence, right? He must have people he works with very closely. It's not just him you're losing. It's not just one pair of hands.
Is it? I don't know if it is just him in that, because he costs so much, basically. I don't know. You might be right on that one, but I've actually no idea.
Anyway, that's so overall, pretty shocking. Probably going to have a bit of an impact, isn't it? Yeah, Conclusion from LB.
Yeah, it might do all right.
Might do. Well, that's big news number 1 covered off. On the other side of this break, big news number 2, Nico Hulkenberg moving away from Haas and joining Sauber.
I like the idea that as a news channel, that's how we identify our headlines. Big news number 2 coming up.
I'm going to run with it. Before we get into the news of Nico Hulkenberg joining Sauber and then Audi for 2026, Patreon. Have we got a Patreon?
I think we do. I have heard, though, it's incredibly expensive, I think.
Oh, that's a shame.
Considering how much stuff you get for it, it must cost a fortune. Harry, I've seen you on there. You must spend a fortune on it.
Yeah. Well, because the amount of content that comes out of that Patreon channel by the Late Breaking Podcast, things that come out of it are incredible. And I reckon monthly that must be worth around £250 because it's just pure excellence all the time.
Honestly, that's a really fair price to pay for it, and
it's not that.
Is it not, Ben? How much is it, mate?
What? Maybe 200?
235. It depends if you're talking pounds and dollars, obviously. But we've got 3 tiers. But you're not going to be shelling out 250. What? It'd be more like divide that by a large number. Divide that by like 25 and you're about there.
By 25? You got to be mad.
So what you're telling me, the highest tier, how much is the highest tier on the Late Breaking Patreon, Ben? How much is it worth a month?
It's £9.
You get out of town.
Yeah, I'm glad I got in a town. I'm glad I got out of a town because I am shocked.
That is unreal value for money.
We really appreciate everyone who's already signed up, and we appreciate anyone who is going to sign off the back of this plug because it's an absolute mess. But there is plenty on there to enjoy. And then, of course, with Miami Grand Prix coming up, we'll have power rankings off the back of that as well. All episodes ad free. I won't run through every single benefit because I'd be here until the end of the show. But we really do appreciate everyone who decides to give it a go. Nico Hulkenberg. He's decided to move away from Haas at the end of 2024. He'll be joining Sauber for 2025 on a multi-year deal, which of course means he'll be there for when the team transitions to be Audi in 2026 as part of the new regulations. This has been somewhat rumoured for a little bit, but this is actually happening now. Sam, are you surprised by the news?
I'm not surprised, but I am impressed with Nico Hulkenberg. I know that sounds ridiculous, but the journey that man has come on since being a youngster in the sport where a lot of people thought that he could go on to be something really, really special. Of course, he starts his career with Williams. He ends up moving to Force India, and then he goes back to Sauber, where he's, of course, technically going now with Audi, goes back to Force India, and then you just think the chopping and changing is at Renault for a couple of years, and then after that, you think, well, where next for him after a big giant like Renault? Well, it doesn't look good. He goes to Racing Point, and then he's off the grid, and then he's a reserve driver, and then he goes to Haas. And no disrespect to Haas, but they've not exactly been the tour de force of Formula One over the last few years. Shocking news if you knew, I'm sure. But the fact that he's now possibly found himself in not just a manufacturing giant, but a constructor, an OEM, someone who's going to make their own engine, someone that in theory could do something like what Braun did or like Mercedes have done. And they are bringing this full outfit to the sport. He's not getting himself another 1-year deal that extends his time in Formula One. He's going to be part of an automotive giant. And this for someone like Nico Hulkenberg, who, okay, let's say he retires in 3 or 4 years' time. He's carried, right? If he's an ambassador for Audi now for the rest of his life, he's got work opportunities there. He's got other races that he can take part in outside of F1. The level of opportunity that this is for Nico Hulkenberg cannot be overstated. For a guy that's been struggling in midfield cars, making the odd great impression near the top of the field, to never have a podium in the sport, this could unlock the level of talent that I do think he has. And he's been showing that off over the last couple of seasons. He's been phenomenal, qualifying as being sublime. And I do think that his race pace, if given the car, is so strong. He's still definitely the best driver in that midfield pack at the moment, maybe alongside Yuki Tsunoda over the first few races of this season. He's excellent. And I'm so glad that even at his age now, he's getting a chance to stretch his legs and he's going to settle into a long-term opportunity. And he could make something of this. I'm interested to see who his teammate's going to be. We'll get onto that. But I really do think that if that Audi car performs, we could see Nico Hulkenberg at the front.
What do you think, Harry? Do you think this is a smart move by both parties?
Yeah, I mean, Renaissance man, Nico Hulkenberg. It is impressive how this is turned around for him. From going from not having a drive at the end of 2019, no drive at all, to now be signing for what will eventually be the next big manufacturer in Formula One is quite impressive turnaround. And there are a lot of factors in here, which, you know, there's a bit of luck involved, but sometimes you just need a bit of luck. So obviously during the COVID years, you had a couple of stand-in performances for Force India, for Racing Point and then Aston Martin as well, because he was their reserve driver, which certainly helped his cause and just kept him on the radar, which I think, had that not happened, people may, no offense, Nico, people may have just forgotten about him. So I think that helped. But he's gone about, you know, since coming back with Haas last year, he's just gone about things very, not under the radar, but just got on with it and just delivered solid, good performances all the time. And no offense to Haas, but the Haas seat was just a way back in for him, wasn't it? He'd have signed for anyone to get back on the grid, I imagine. But the way he's done it is, his approach has been, I think, I'll sign for whatever team. I'll just do what I can in that car, and he has. And what he has been doing, to be honest, has been pretty impressive. Last year, I thought it was actually very impressive, and he was just let down by the fact that Haas couldn't do a race ever because he kept qualifying so well. But this year, now that the car can work a bit better in races, he's delivering. I know he's got like 4 points, but that doesn't really reflect how well he's been driving. So from Sauber and Audi side, this is a solid, dependable driver for their entry back into F1. He's a German driver as well, which helps things from marketing point of view. It makes sense. But it's from Hulkenberg's side, this could finally be. I feel like we said this before because we said it with Renault, but because when he signed for them, that seemed like maybe this was the big thing. But this could finally be his chance for some success. I mean, good Lord, the day, if he does get a podium one day, everything's going to melt. Because we've been waiting so long for that man to get on the podium when he should have done way before this. But so I sincerely hope it does work out for him. But yeah, it's I think from both sides, it's a great move for Hulkenberg, obviously. Who manages him, by the way? Because they've done very well. I don't know
I've heard God, maybe.
Yeah, negotiation powers are excellent in the Hulkenberg camp, but
divine intervention has taken place to allow that man for continued success.
Exactly. So, and I'll tell you what, if it becomes a potential Sainz Hulkenberg lineup at Audi, I've seen worse. I've seen worse combinations of drivers. So, yeah, good move from both sides.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. Hulkenberg has done a great job for Haas, and I agree with your point, Harry, that he did a great job last year, and there was nothing he could do about that. Sinking Haas in all of those races where it'd start in 9th and then finish in 18th. But I think he did a really good job last year. He's doing a really good job this year. I always think like the sign that someone is doing really well is that it doesn't get spoken about. Like, it's the same, like, there's a reason Max Verstappen never features in the driver of the day votes when it comes to the public at large. It's because everyone's just used to him winning by 30 seconds. And it's the same with Nico Hulkenberg to an extent, in that, when the Sauber duo did very well in qualifying in China, we made a point of it because it's a rarity. And if, let's just say, Daniel Ricciardo were to make a Q3 in Miami, we'd make a point out of it. Nico Hulkenberg gets into Q3 and barely anything is said, because it's just become the norm for him. But it's still a really impressive achievement every single time he does it, given the car he's in. And people like to focus as well on the podium stat and how he's done over 200 races in F1, never been on a podium, and he's quite comfortably clear of the next best or the next person on that list. But realistically, he's had 208 starts in F1. How many of them could he have had a podium at? I'm not saying that he shouldn't have had a podium at this point, because he's had teammates who have got podiums, Sergio Perez most notably. But when we say like he hasn't had a podium in 208 races, how many could he have got a podium in? 5? I don't know. It's such a small percentage of the races he's done, and I think it diminishes what a good job he has done throughout his career. The last thing I want to say, because I do think it is a positive for both parties, I think this is somewhat the Fernando Alonso effect, because Nico Hulkenberg will be 38 years old when he's at Sauber in a couple of at Audi in 2026. Which I don't know. I feel like Fernando Alonso and the lack of diminishing returns that he's had going into his 40s might have had some sort of impact on giving Audi the confidence that the same thing might happen. We're not saying Hulkenberg's the same level as Alonso, obviously, but what we're looking at is there a drop-off as they get into their 40s or into their late 30s? There might be an impact of Fernando Alonso not having had that.
I've got a really big question to ask Formula One, actually. Hulkenberg, Audi, Mercedes, Hockenheim, please. What more do we need? What more interest do you need from a nation now to put a bloody racetrack from their nation on the calendar? Please bring it back.
I've also just twigged the guy who, again, very quiet at the moment, but is working under the radar, is Andreas Seidel at Sauber, which will be Audi. And those two work together because Hulkenberg did Le Mans with Porsche, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, good shout.
He was good there as well.
He won it. So
yeah, that is what I class as good.
Yeah. Did an all right job.
Again, got over the line before everyone else did. Well done.
Yeah, Hulkenberg Le Mans winner is something we just forget. But yes, he did. At the same time as being in F1 as well, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
Triple Crown, Gwen?
Yes. Goodness me. Hulkenberg did the Indy 500. Off we go. And winning Monaco.
Can you imagine if he won the Indy 500 and the thing that let him down was the F1 part of the Triple Crown?
Over 200 appearances, and that he does one race in each other series and wins them all.
Yeah. That would be very Nico Hulkenberg. I can't wait for him to join Audi in 2026 and Ollie Behrman's just mopping up podiums for Haas.
Imagine if Komatsu's cooked and all he's serving up at the restaurant is podium after podium. So also on special today, second place for Ollie Behrman, Hulkenberg weeping in the corner into his lovely Audi race suit, I imagine.
Never doubt Komatsu.
No.
Oh dear. Hey, producer Kirsty liked that one. She was chuckling away.
Of the two drivers that are currently with Sauber, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, Harry, who do you think is more at risk? Are they both at risk at this point?
I think they're both at risk. I'd say Zhou Guanyu is probably more at risk. For next year, I see they're going to keep Bottas, aren't they? Surely. And this is no offense to Zhou, but I just think they will, and see how that goes, and then they'll make a decision, or they'll signs in the next week probably, and then we'll look like idiots. But out of the two, I think probably Zhou is the one that's most at risk here. I did see someone, can't remember, it might have been race fans or Keith who runs race fans, but made the point that F1 made quite a big deal at the weekend about Zhou Guanyu being at the Chinese GP for the first time. And is it because it might be the last time as well? Did they already know about this? So don't know, that's being skeptical, but yeah, you get the feeling that if they're going to keep either of them, it'll be Bottas, because actually Bottas is in pretty good form at the moment. So yeah, you keep Bottas, you have a Bottas Hulkenberg lineup for next year, and then you see where you go. Again, I feel like that it won't be enough if Sainz is, because they're going to have to, unless Sainz is at Red Bull, then that makes things easier for Bottas. But if Sainz is a free agent, then maybe it's over for both of them. But yeah, most of the rest is Zhou at the moment.
Should probably be. It's a good time to flag as well that at the beginning of April, we made our predictions as to what the 2025 grid would look like. It's not the end of April, and we're all wrong.
It's so late breaking that we're all wrong immediately.
Well done, all of us. Sam, who's more at risk, do you think?
I think it entirely depends on what Audi long-term want to achieve. Do they want both drivers to have on-track success? Now, I feel like having Hulkenberg in one seat is a great start. But, does the lineup look very, very weak all of a sudden if you have a Zhou Guanyu Hulkenberg lineup? Potentially. But look at the market that you're selling in there. Hulkenberg, of course, covers Europe fantastically with that German-centric front. But then what goes on in China, right? The market's so big. You saw the turnout at Shanghai and the reception that Zhou picked up. Do Audi see China as a key market? Are they looking to retail their cars there? And that, it sounds sad, but that is a very important question. Is the biggest gain for Audi actually marketing? And do they go, well, Zhou isn't pulling in the points, but we are getting millions and millions of revenue based off Audi's becoming one of the best-selling cars in the most populated country in the world, potentially. Equally, are they trying to do what Aston Martin saw at the pickup of last year and go, well, if we have two really good drivers, Aston Martin don't, but go with me, then actually we start raking in points and podiums and things like that, and we sign Valtteri Bottas, or potentially Carlos Sainz, of course, then does Audi on racetrack doing really, really well reflect in Audi car sales doing really, really well? Because it shows high performance, it shows good reliability, it's a cool image to have. You've seen how well Aston Martin have picked up since Alonso picked up all those podiums. It is a clear measure of success, and I imagine that the Mercedes brand saw a very much similar pickup when Lewis Hamilton started to win world championships there. So I think Zhou's more at risk. And I think they'll use the Aston Martin and Mercedes case studies as examples. But Valtteri Bottas hasn't got this sewn up, you know, with Carlos Sainz waiting in the wings, and there are a number of other very talented drivers that are kind of skiffing about for seats, whether they have one already or not. There's rumours of Gasly going to Williams, perhaps. Could we see him maybe going to Audi instead? You know, it's all possible. He's not got this one sewn up, so he's got to keep putting in the performances. He's got to maintain the form that he started with so brilliantly. But I think if Zhou has any chance of staying in that seat, he's got to start beating Bottas as a bare minimum.
Can't believe K-Mag's blagged himself another year.
It's not done and dusted yet.
Well, yeah, we'll move on to what that might mean for Haas in a moment. I tend to think, I agree with what you say, Sam. It is probably Valtteri Bottas is doing a better job in the car versus Zhou Guanyu and the sponsorship opportunity, and which one wins out. I've got to be honest, I'd be surprised if either of them are in the car in 2026, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them stays for 2025, in which case I think it's a really tough call. I wouldn't be surprised if they kept Zhou Guanyu and let Bottas go. Not that I think that would be a good idea, but if Zhou's sponsorship can outweigh what Bottas is doing on track, then maybe that's the direction they go. I'm genuinely not sure. I should also just make the almost standard point at this stage, say that I don't know if you're aware, Sauber, but you've got Théo Pourchaire in your junior program.
Oh, here we go. The Ben Hocking Théo Pourchaire propaganda argument pops back up once again.
I don't need to do propaganda. He's won the F2 title.
Mate, that's not enough. You've seen it clear as day. That success is not enough in Formula One anymore.
Man's ripping it up at IndyCar now. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Anyway, so, you know, consider that maybe. For Haas, Behrman and Magnussen for next year, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've reduced their quality if that is the overall lineup. Ollie Behrman, of course, had a fantastic one-off performance around Saudi, and I don't want it understated just how good I thought he was. But there's still a lot to learn. There's a lot to develop. And if we're saying that people like Oscar Piastri, who we rate incredibly highly as a very young driver, is struggling against the likes of Lando Norris, then it's going to take time for Behrman to settle in. And I'd argue that Haas is not as an enjoyable and all-inclusive atmosphere as what maybe McLaren is, where Piastri is. So it's going to take some time. There's going to need some development. I'm not sure we're going to see the next Charles Leclerc on our hands, or he's going to jump up within one season to Ferrari, for example. And Magnussen, Mr. Box Office, well, we saw in China alone what that man could suddenly be capable of when the kill switch is suddenly engaged and he decides to turn into Terminator. The guy goes from being Mr. I'll poodle around and help my teammates score points to I've got a 10-second penalty and I'm outside the points, so the world must end. And I'm not sure that makes for a solid elder driver that you can rely on. So K-Mag, I think, has maybe gotten away with it, but I don't know if there's guarantees that he stays there. Komatsu might have other plans in mind. He might want to go down a different direction. But with all the changes that are going on, I do think it's probably slightly more favourable for him that he gets away with it, just because it will be another moving cog in an already very complicated machine. And Gene Haas, he doesn't take too well to new cogs in his machine. He doesn't know what's going on otherwise. So, yeah, K-Mag probably just gets away with it.
Well, Harry, you said that K-Mag has blagged another year, but I think you're wrong, because as we know with Haas, they either replace no drivers or they replace two drivers. So I think Magnussen's done.
I think he's out of here. Haas, look, listen, you don't have to replace them both.
That's how it works. That's how contracts work. For
Hulkenberg's gone, so they're like, sorry, Kevin, off you go. Kevin's like,
feel
why?
Conjoined, right?
It works.
If you're attached, you must both go.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think that there are probably other solid drivers out there that you could replace Magnussen with, but if they're going to bring in Behrman, which seems like the obvious choice, and I think they probably will, keep someone who's been there. You don't have to do it forever, just maybe for another year. So I think it's probably sensible enough to keep I'm being unfair when I say he's blagged another year, but it's sensible to keep Magnussen there for next year. If you've got a rookie coming in, again, I'd like to repeat, you don't need to have 2 rookies, and you don't need to also just keep the same people all the time. Mix and match. Yeah.
I reckon Grosjean could come back.
I mean, it's entirely possible.
Those 3 drivers just on a constant lazy Susan of contracts when it goes into Haas.
Anyway, so I bet Grosjean's actually phoned them. Do you reckon?
He has.
Bonjour, lads. Need a driver?
Yeah, I think a Magnussen-Behrman lineup probably makes sense for next year. Keep some consistency because the things that Haas have had going on, and this year is way better than last year. But the problems they've had with their car and developing that car, you need a driver that's driven some of your other cars, and I think it makes sense to keep Magnussen on for a bit whilst they keep developing. So, yeah, Magnussen makes sense. Again, he could just still be there forever. I don't know. I keep thinking this will be his last year in F1, but somehow he survives. He's like the cockroach of F1.
Yeah, he'll make it through the nuclear war and Formula One will fail. I think what's worrying, though, for Haas is Behrman, of course, would be a loan type deal for Ferrari long term in the future if he does impress. Magnussen isn't really good enough to be sticking around forever. If they don't replace Magnussen now for a long-term option, then they might end up having to replace both drivers anyway going into the 2026 season. And I'm not saying Behrman will be gone after one season, but it is a possibility. And that leaves them in a really dangerous position when they've got brand new regulations, brand new car. The team's had a lot of changes, and then they're going to have another 2 new drivers. That's a lot to contend with when you already are struggling to put together 5 races in a row that are considered all right.
I sincerely hope they do sign Behrman just so we get more reaction shots of his very nervous dad that we had in Saudi, because that was excellent.
I enjoy F1 dad cams. Goes all the way back to Felipe. Yeah, Felipe Massa's dad is a star.
He was furious every time he was filmed.
And then Anthony Hamilton would just sit there with the calmest expression on his face forever.
Oh dear. Goodness me.
I think it's fair for Haas to have some sort of backup plan because, like you say, it would be a loan deal with Ollie Behrman. I think the thing that will give Haas some encouragement that it might be a long-term loan deal is that with Lewis Hamilton saying, I'm probably going to race into my 40s now, and Charles Leclerc is obviously going to be there forever because he doesn't know how to leave. Based on that, I'd be surprised if that Ferrari lineup was going to change in the short to medium term. But things can change very quickly in F1, so it's always wise to have some sort of continuation plan when it comes to your driver lineup. I think Behrman and Magnussen makes the most sense at this point for the reasons you stated. With Behrman, I think they've been lining him up for that seat for the last year. In reality, that they gave him some FP1 outings last year. They're giving him like 6 FP1 outings this year, even before this news was announced. I would be surprised if they didn't go with Behrman. And Magnussen, yeah, like you say, he just finds a way to stick around, doesn't he? And Haas have seen what has happened before by changing both of their cars. I think Magnussen this year has proven, not that he's proven he's as good as Hulkenberg, but he's proven he's a team player. And I think that will buy him 1 more year. But Haas, 1 more year, not 2, not 3, not 12, 1, please.
Not to chop and change. Going back to Charles Leclerc, do you think Ferrari set up his hotel room like an escape room so he can never get out?
I think they did at first, but now it's Stockholm Syndrome.
That makes sense. Yeah, you've got to have a developmental plan for someone that good, I suppose.
Oh, Charles. One day. I tell you what, who's on the phone to Adrian Newey? Number 1, Charles Leclerc. And no one's on the phone to him quicker than Charles Leclerc.
I love it here, please.
Right, we'll take our next break. On the other side, we're chatting sprint races.
Yay.
Okay, welcome back. Stefano Domenicali, F1 CEO, has had some comments about sprint races. He was asked by Sky whether he was considering proposing more sprint races on the calendar. Domenicali's response was, why not? He said, I would say this is great because it keeps the tension on every day, and this is something that we will discuss in the future. Now, let's see how this year with the sprints in the way that we've decided this year will go, but that is a point of discussion. Harry, how many sprint races do you think he's going to aim for, and why is he wrong?
They're gonna try and get every weekend to be a sprint race, aren't they? This is where we're heading.
You think?
Oh. Is he watching something different every time we have a sprint race? I don't understand. Stefano, what are you... The tension, what tension? It takes away the tension because, as we said before, you just watch the mini race, basically. So you know what's happening the next day. It doesn't matter. God. Anyway, I don't know how many he's going to get it aimed for. It does feel like they're aiming for... maybe they'll double it. Maybe they'll go for 12. At least you get half the calendar as a sprint race. Which would be hell. I don't want that. Does anyone want that? Oh, God. Anyway. Yeah, terrible idea. Obviously, we don't like sprint races here. Apparently some people do, which I find interesting. But, you know, you're entitled to your opinion, even if
You're going with interesting.
Even if you're wrong. Yeah, I just from F1 side, it's just more revenue, isn't it? Because you're getting people watching F1 technically for longer over a weekend when they wouldn't be, which I guess is their ultimate aim out of this. And I understand it from that point of view, but actually you're doing it for the wrong reasons because they suck. They just suck, and I hate them. Please stop having sprint races, and especially, and we're going to whinge about the time here, at terrible timed Grand Prix, because we've had China, and now we've got Miami. It's either really early or really late. Sort it out. Anyway,
right.
Terrible idea.
All positive then. Sam?
Yeah, I think Domenicali's turned into Oprah Winfrey. Really, with you get a sprint racing, you get a sprint racing, you get a sprint race. I think he's just gone mad with power of sprint races. The effect of them needs to be studied. It came out quite clearly, didn't it, that Kota, who had a sprint race, came out and said, we haven't sold any more tickets because we've suddenly got a sprint race. And this might be a just me thing, but let me know, guys, if you agree. When we had the sprint race at China, I kind of felt like I'd eaten my pudding before my dinner, and it spoiled the main meal for me. I had a bit too much. I couldn't eat my lovely dinner on Sunday, and I didn't like that feeling. I kind of got to the end of the weekend, and I was a bit like, oh, even me, who's a huge F1 fan, I'm a bit tuckered out. I need a little bit of a rest. Okay. Sorry, Harry, go on.
I was just saying, just an example, and I think you're totally right here. And I don't think the drivers like it either. And one example of this, Fernando Alonso cares. He does not care about a sprint race because he just chucks his car about in a sprint race like it doesn't matter.
Not a Scooby.
He did that at Belgium.
Exactly. He just fell off, didn't he? Just fell off the road. Like, I've had enough of this. Whatever. I'm done. And that's what I mean. It's such a nothing race. And for us as well, you like say, yeah, there's a good analogy, Sam. You're eating your pudding before your dinner. One of your better ones, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's because I'm on holiday and relaxed. But yeah, Fernando Alonso just drives around with all the rules turned off, doesn't he, on sprint races?
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't care if he hits the wall or if he drives into someone or he doesn't score any points at all. He's like, I'm not bothered. I'll do it properly tomorrow. Tomorrow's the real quiz. And so what's the point? It doesn't mean anything. The points are pathetically low. You look at Hamilton, when he scored that second place, he picks up 7 points while he had the naffest qualifying for the real race and barely scores anything. And George Russell basically takes it all back by being 6th in the main Grand Prix. Make it mean something else. Do a sprint race championship if you've got to have it. Get reserve drivers in. Do reverse quiz. Do something that entirely separates it from the actual main event that's enjoyable, that we've all turned up for over 70 years now. There's a reason why that formula works. And this one isn't really being taken off too well. I hate them. I don't need 18 sprint races. I think he'll at least go for half. I think he'll try and push for more. And all of a sudden, it's like this has turned into a real fascination and obsession for him. And I hate it. So please make it stop.
Yeah, my instinct is that Domenicali will try and get. I've said 10. I think he'll try and get 10 on the grid next year, given that we basically had no change between 2023 and 2024. We've got 6 this year. We had 6 last year. The thing is, for Domenicali and for others, other senior figures within F1, public opinion doesn't matter, because either the public will support sprint races, or not for the first time, they'll just deliver this rigged survey where they'll say, what do you think about sprint races? Here are your 2 options. Option A is, I love sprint races, or option B is, I hate sprint races, but I also love killing animals. It's like, okay, I'll go with option A then. Thanks.
Honestly, Ben, mass extinction at this point feels like the better option.
Sorry to all the pelicans and puffins out there. You're gone. I hate sprints.
It's about time they sacrifice themselves for the better cause.
I've never seen Ben ponder a response more than that.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but yeah, sprints have reached that point. I understand the point of wanting to provide people with the best possible entertainment, but I've never got this argument, is that, and sorry, David Croft, to single you out on this, because I know you're not the only one, but David Croft saying after the sprint quali or after the sprint race saying, well, that was more fun than FP2, wasn't it? It's like, yes, of course it is. But like, it's the same thing as saying, okay, I've got an apple and an orange, and it's like going to the apple, you are doing a better job of being an apple. It's like, yes, of course it is, because it is an apple. It's not, it's an orange is doing something different. Like, a practice is not supposed to be entertaining. There's a reason why, for example, let's bring football into this, right? Sam, have you ever said on a Thursday morning when Newcastle been training behind closed doors, have you ever said, damn, wish they'd have just done a match instead?
Funny enough, Ben, that's never come out of my mouth.
Of course it hasn't, because practice is meant to be practice. And in other sports, it's not pitched as something that it isn't. With F1, it's the same with preseason testing. People watch preseason testing for the first time and go, wow, it's a bit dull, isn't it? Yeah, it's supposed to be dull. It's preseason testing. Like, it's not supposed to be a competitive session. But because we televise it, people then expect more from these sessions. And we're just getting to that same point again. Yes, we could have 12 races in a week and they'd all be more entertaining than free practice. No one's disagreeing with that. But like you say, it's the whole taking away from the race itself, that it just doesn't matter to them, though. It just doesn't matter what the public opinion is. They'll do it anyway. There's
too much of a good thing, isn't there? Too much excitement means that nothing is actually exciting. If you were on holiday every single day of your life, you'd probably be like, I actually miss home. I actually wouldn't mind putting my feet up in my own house and, you know, having a cup of tea and enjoying myself in my home. But one holiday a year, you go, I'm really looking forward to my one holiday a year. And sprint race is like having a mini holiday next to your really big holiday and going, I'm kind of tired now. I wouldn't mind going home in between my 2 holidays, because actually I've got jet lag and, you know, I'm not eating the right food, and no one makes a good cup of tea around here. But I just want the big holiday. And the race on a Sunday is the big holiday that I look forward to, that I spend a lot of money on and I enjoy. I don't need this weird little mini break at the start of my holiday.
Your pudding analogy was better, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry, for rating my analogies. So I'm glad you're here.
Also, just to stress that we are being 100% honest about our opinions here, which I would like to think is a given anyway. But us advocating for fewer sprint races is not within our interest as
Literally.
A podcast.
We make money off this.
True.
It's not in our interest at all what we're advocating, and we still are.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Less content.
Anyway, let's move on. Lando Norris has made some comments recently saying that F1 might never have a driver like Fernando Alonso again in terms of his longevity in the sport. Of course, we are 23 years after Fernando Alonso's debut in the sport at this point, and he seems to think that maybe it won't ever happen again. And if it does happen, it might be a rarity. Sam, what are your thoughts?
Alonso's ability, that man is an enigma. It's hard to just fathom how he has transcended time and space. I imagine that there'll be something that comes out that the film Interstellar is actually about Fernando Alonso's life and how he's transcended through the very fabric of time. But I don't know how he's still so good. And you know, Harry, you had a banger tweet about it. but the reactions of that man catching the half spin as he touched the gravel going around China.
Yeah, but he lost time to Hamilton, didn't he?
Oh, honestly, I was not going to bring the swear in there. This is spectacular. He's still better than most racers, and that is mind-blowing. Now, I think Norris's comments are fair. I think we could see someone with that longevity again, but whether it's the longevity and the quality combined, I think is a very different scenario. Fernando Alonso is arguably still in the top 1% of drivers worldwide. The guy is unfathomably good, and I think he would win a championship if you gave him the right equipment tomorrow. I think he would happily take it by the horns and run it right to the front. Whereas there are so many other drivers. Hulkenberg is a good example. Nico Hulkenberg has been around already for 14 years. He might be around for another 5 or 6. He might hit the 20-year mark. Great, that is a long time, but he's not the same quality as Fernando Alonso. So it shows that the body physically is able to now deal with it, and we might start seeing younger drivers get skipped out on for the more older, more experienced veteran-style driver like Fernando Alonso is. But I'm not sure that many drivers, one a generation is going to be able to deliver just this level of superior quality when they've been in the sport since the boys here were about 6 years old. That's ridiculous. They're now 54.
It's true.
Yeah,
that's how time works. Multiply by 9.
Do everything by 9.
What are your thoughts, Harry? Do you think this will be a bit of a one-off when Alonso's career is all done and dusted?
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone will go quite as long, at least for a long time. I think careers in F1 now go longer than they used to. Because when Schumacher came back, had his comeback, that was a bit of an anomaly. He was an older driver then versus everyone else. Obviously, Alonso's now in his 40s. Hamilton isn't going to be far off and will probably still be racing in his 40s, or is at least aiming to. As mentioned, Hulkenberg isn't going to be far off either. So I think F1 careers do last longer, but to still be performing at that level for Alonso, I think that's probably more what Norris is referring to here, because as we say, he's not lost much of his touch in 23 years. And you said this the other day, Ben, you thought his qualifying was his weakness, but he's proved this year that not even that is his weakness, because he's been excellent in the qualifying. So yeah, I think it's a fair comment. I'm not sure we'll see many drivers that will carry on to that. I think we'll see that will carry on to maybe similar ages, but we'll be able to carry on to the same level. And Hamilton could probably be the exception to this, depending on how it all goes at Ferrari. But yeah, it's probably an anomaly. The one thing I was going to say, do you think that physically, and I know these cars in qualifying are still pretty tough to drive, but actually during a race now, they're not for F1 drivers. I mean, for me, you, and me, Ben, and Sam, it would be pretty tough. But during a race,
don't include me in that. Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm a machine.
All right, so for me and Ben, it'd be tough.
Thank you.
They're never on the limit ever, basically, in terms of driving their car, just because of the way the formula is now, and they're driving to trying to save the tyres. Do you think that's had an impact on? That's been the way for a few years now. Don't know. As a theory, has that helped things along in terms of the physicality of it?
You've seen the video of Charles Leclerc leaving his radio on and panting throughout the first few corners of the racetrack.
Yeah, and I'd like to emphasise it's very relative to F1 drivers, not normal mere folk like ourselves. I just mean in comparison to what it was even 10 years ago, how hard you'd be pushing during a race versus how hard they have to drive now. I'm not saying it's not tough. I'm just saying it's easier than it used to be.
No, I think you're right. I thought it was a very interesting video.
I think you're right as well. I'm convinced the reason when Alonso does decide to leave in 2062, it will not be because of the physicality of F1. Whenever he decides to go, I'm convinced it will be something relating to family wanting to do something else, not having the heart for anyone, whatever it might be. I'm convinced it's not going to be, I can't physically do this anymore. And I think it's a valid point. I'd say with Fernando Alonso, it will end up being a rarity, like how long into a career he's gone. I think just because, firstly, Fernando Alonso probably benefited from a couple of years away. And also, we've just spoken about it, sprint races. If we're going to get to a point where, Fernando Alonso's first few years in his career, they were on probably 15-ish races per season, no sprint races. It was far less of a commitment. Anyone starting in F1 now is starting a career and doing 24 races, including, a quarter of those being sprint weekends. Like, it's even if you can say each individual race is maybe less of a physical toll on the body, I think the weekend as a whole and the calendar as a whole is more of a physical toll. So anyone starting now, I think, and maybe this is where Norris is coming from, I think there's a better, or not a better chance, but an increased chance that anyone starting now could get to like 35 years old and go, yeah, that's taken enough out of me. I'm gonna head off now. So it could end up being a rarity. Should we take our final break on this episode and return to some back and forth?
Crikey, I can't wait. Back and forth at Centre Parks. I'm living the dream.
Just going to have to switch notebooks.
Goodness me.
I got to the end of my big notebook, but my back and forth is still in my big notebook.
Beg's big notebook sounds like a new feature.
BBN. Okay, here we go, everyone. It is back and forth.
F1. Back and forth, it's F1. Back and forth, it goes backwards. Then goes forth, it's F1. Back and forth, F1. That really slaps when you're on holiday.
In holiday?
If it hasn't been mentioned, I'm actually on holiday.
I'm surprised it's taking you an hour to get to that point. F1 back and forth. Harry and Sam will go up against each other. There is a certain category with 18 correct answers this time around. They'll keep going back and forth until they can't think of an answer or they give an incorrect answer. I'm going to give you one strike on this one.
Oh, that means it's hard.
Oh, no.
Well, if I'd given you 3 strikes, that would have indicated it's even harder, but I'll give you one strike.
Okay.
I want you to name the top 18 point scorers in F1 history who haven't claimed a win.
For goodness sake.
I don't
And to
like
be
this
clear,
game.
a sprint win does not count as a win. In this game and in real life.
Hey.
So yeah, 18 point scorers without a win. Harry, kick us off.
Nico Hulkenberg.
Nico Hulkenberg is a correct answer. He's second on this list with 534 points with no win. Sam.
Without a victory. Oh, I was about to say Sergio Perez then. That's not true.
Yeah, he's one of you.
He's done all right, hasn't he? Ooh, without a win. There's so many obvious ones that are evading my brain. Nick Heidfeld.
Nick Heidfeld is correct answer. He's 5th on this list, 259 points. Harry.
Oh no. Already I don't know. Nick Heidfeld was my option.
Well, you stole mine, so deal with it.
I don't know. I'll go for... God, I almost said Ralf Schumacher then. That's not good.
Ralf Schumacher?
He won a couple.
Yeah.
Ben, one day, I'd love to know how you find out these statistics. Do you painstakingly go driver to driver, or do you just find the list?
It varies. This one, I think, was relatively easy to find.
Oh, good for you.
Takuma Sato.
Takuma Sato is not on this list.
Damn.
Back to you, Sam.
Surely Norris has got to be on there now.
Lando Norris is number 1 on this list. 691 points without a victory to this point. Harry, pressure's on.
This could be a really short game here. The fact that you mentioned they have a sprint win, does that mean someone's had a sprint win?
I'm not commenting on that. Just thought I would clarify.
Oh, well, you're an arse then. I don't know. Kevin Magnussen.
Kevin Magnussen is a correct answer. He's 8th on this list with 187 points. Sam.
Surely we've got to complete the trifecta of Haas drivers. Surely Grosjean's on there.
Grosjean is on this list. He's third, 391 career points. Harry.
How many did you say there were, Ben?
18.
This is going to be a struggle.
There's no way we're getting through 18. I think I'm going to be out here. I'll go for Adrian Sutil.
Adrian Sutil was a correct answer.
Oh, goodness me.
124 points, which is good enough for 11th on this list. Sam.
Oh, crikey. Maybe. Of course he's done it. Surely Kvyat's done it.
Kvyat is on this list, 202 points, which is good enough for 7th place. Harry.
Jev?
Jev is not a correct answer. He was a near miss. He's, I think, about 23rd or so.
Jean-Eric Verne for those.
Oh, yeah, good point. Clarifying that. But no, Jean-Eric Verne not on this list. You throw out any more names?
Brad.
Oh, Lance.
Lance Stroll, he's 4th on this list with 277.
I'm trying to think of modern drivers. I feel like that's where there's a lot of points, these days. Albon?
Albon is 6th on the list, 228.
I might be struggling at this point. Brundle?
Brundle is on the list, 98 points, which puts him 13th.
I think I might be over an hour. Harry, did you say Kobayashi?
Oh, no, that's a good shout. Kobayashi.
Kobayashi, he's 10th on the list with 125. Any other shouts from you, Harry?
Are there any more in this current crop of drivers?
Yeah. 2.
Is Piastri on there?
Piastri is on there, yeah.
I knew, because you said the sprint win, you arse.
Clarified it for it. Yeah, 135 points without a win.
Gosh, that's mad that he's already on the list. He's only been there for a year and a bit.
Well, put it this way. I put this list together about 3 weeks ago, and he's already one position higher on this list than he was when I did this.
Poor lad.
Yeah. He was behind Kobayashi when I did this.
Is there another current driver on the list?
Yeah, there's one more, and he is 18th out of 18.
My brain, I swear, just forgets teams sometimes.
68 points.
Someone is screaming at their camera right now, their phone.
Who else would be on the grid? Well, who's not on the rate? Zhou Guan Yu.
Not Zhou Guan Yu.
I say it's not Zhou Guan Yu, Harry. Come on.
It is.
Well, hold on, Harry. Let's go through it. Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, Leclerc. None of those. It's not Verstappen. It's not Perez. It's not Alonso. We've done
Yuki Tsunoda.
Yuki Tsunoda. Well done.
68 points.
Gosh, that was painful.
I didn't get a strike. But equally, I don't know any other answers.
There's 5 more on there. You got any others?
Eddie Cheever.
Eddie Cheever is on there, yeah. 70 points.
Oh, what a guess. I honestly, what have we got? Years? Eras?
One of them has raced in. Well, technically, one of them has raced in the last decade, but
Jarno Trulli.
He won Monaco.
Monaco 04, boy.
He did. That's my strike. I think I'm done.
The most recent name on this list that you didn't get was Paul di Resta, 121 points.
Unlucky, Paul.
The other 3, all a bit further back. So Stefan Johansson raced mainly in the 1980s. Chris Amon, who raced mostly in the 60s and 70s. And Warwick. Derek Warwick. Dad, yeah. No, actually, Derek Warwick.
Should have got Chris Amon, actually. Bit grumpy, didn't get that.
the nearest name to being on this list that I'm a little bit surprised you didn't guess, but you'd have been wrong if you did. Vitaly Petrov. He was very close.
I refuse to mention him, so that's why.
That's fair enough.
Are we done? Is that it?
That's it.
Have we done?
We've backed all of our fourths.
I'm just backing my fourth up, excuse me. All right, cool. Okay, well, thanks for listening, folks. It's a joy as always. We're going to be back midweek. Well, me and Ben will. Harry won't be. And we'll be doing our Miami preview. So if you want to be involved in that, you can submit on Discord. You want to join it. The link's in the description. You can submit your under pressure and tell us who you think. It could be driver. It could be the track. It could be a team. It could be anything Formula One related. Why is it under pressure? Let us know. You might get featured on the show. That's a little rhyme. Patreon is available. We did the plug earlier for that. If you don't want to join it, though, we just really appreciate you listening to every episode. The support is massive. It does help us out. Thank you hugely.
We like you less.
Yeah, exactly. Follow us on social media, Late Breaking F1, everywhere. That's the @s for all of our systems. Or you can follow us individually if you really care about our own lives that much. YouTube is available. It's the same as what I said it was previously. And we'll speak to you midweek. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
And I've been Ben. Oh, no, you're here, Harry.
That's absolutely savage.
I'm getting prepared for Wednesday. I'm so sorry.
I've been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep breaking late.
Correct, son.
Absolutely
Correct.
brutal takedown.